On today's Two on Your Side Town Hall, we are talking about the future of the ADM Grain Mill near Buffalo's waterfront. Many want it torn down. Others say it should be saved. We're going to get into it coming up.
Plus, what are the chances former President Donald Trump's lawsuit succeeds against New York's Attorney General? We have some legal insight on that.
And the Bills and the Sabres dealing with COVID issues. Reports that Cole Beasley is out for this week with the entire NHL schedule put on hold. We have it all covered for you in just a bit.
And we're glad you're here with us today. Aside from COVID, perhaps the most talked about story in Western New York this week has been what should happen to that grain elevator near Riverworks after part of it came down during a windstorm a week and a half ago.
The owners want it demolished, but some preservationists and developers would like to see the building saved. It is known as the Great Northern Grain Elevator. It's on Ganson Street. It's owned by ADM Milling. Now, that company submitted an emergency demolition application to the city last week.
But the city responded, asking ADM to preserve portions of the historic structure. But many ask, how historic really is it?
Joining us live to talk more about this is Gwen Howard. She is the chair of the city's preservation board, in addition to being the vice president of architecture at Foit-Albert Associates. And Gwen, we're glad to have you with us for your perspective on this. We just want to begin with what appears to be a discrepancy between the owners of the facility and the preservationists who want to see it saved. We know that at least one wall sustained quite a bit of damage. You saw it there last weekend. What can you tell us first just about the basic inspection process here and how engineers determine if a building is structurally sound or if it poses a danger and maybe should come down?
Well, thank you very much for having me. Inspectors tend to look at the building from a variety of different angles. There was drone footage that was used to inspect this property because there was a concern about going inside. However, structural engineers can assess both the ground conditions, the structural analysis of the walls and the interior structure, and perform calculations and visible analysis to determine whether or not the building is structurally sound.
Gwen, the city of Buffalo, like so much of our region, is full of older buildings. I wonder if you can walk us through the process that a building would go through to determine if it is actually historic and something that should be saved, especially in instances in which maybe there's no obvious future for a building like that. I think people in this community, you don't want to see a building that's truly historic be torn down. We've lost way too many of those over the decades. But at the same time, some people wonder, why are we saving this place?
Well, this building really is unique and really important in the history of Buffalo. If you think about all of the great architectural treasures from fine, high-style architects that are within our community, they are a testament to the kind of rank that we had as a city at the turn of the century and beyond. But we wouldn't have had that kind of wealth and prosperity in this community without the grain industry that really put us on the map. It was the activities that took place on the river and the lake, bringing grain from the west, transferring it into canal boats and railroad cars, and bringing it eastward, that really made Buffalo the prosperous community that it was. So if you think about it, without the activities that occurred at the grain elevators, we would have none of the other architectural treasures that we have now. So architectural legacy doesn't just mean those high style buildings, but they come in all shapes and sizes. Our history in our community is told through the places that we have in our community. And that means both fine buildings and those working buildings, large buildings, small buildings. And so we need to really preserve that totality of that legacy in order to really preserve the history of our community.
I want to ask you, Gwen, because whether it's this grain elevator or any other historic structure, are there steps taken or is there any obligation on the part of those who save these buildings to ensure that they're rehabbed, that they continue to be used? Because I would think that there's a danger of it just being left and you have a vacant building that, sure, it's historic, but now it's just slowly falling apart. So you get the same result, only just stretched out over a longer period of time.
And we unfortunately refer to that as demolition by neglect. But there really has been a opportunity in a lot of our historic buildings. We have seen so many buildings in our community that have changed use and been reused and put to higher and better uses than their original historic uses that may be outdated. And there are tools that are available to do that. that really, because they are historic buildings, there are tools that are available to help finance those projects. It's really incumbent on the property owner or the developer to look into using those tools to be able to help fund what can be, on occasion, a real gap in financing when you're using a historic building. But there's a process in place for inspecting those buildings, making sure that they remain safe. Those inspections are, when necessary, turned over to the court system. And unfortunately, sometimes that's where things seem to languish in our community, when they make it into the court system and what they refer to as the housing court system.
Finally, Gwen, can you tell us what you think should happen to this building and what you think will happen to this building, and maybe kind of set the scene for us on what's going to happen in the coming weeks and months as this all sort of plays out?
Well, it's no secret that Douglas Jamel has expressed interest in this property, and we're very, very grateful for his continued investment in our community. So what I'd like to see happen is ADM make the decision to allow Douglas Jamel to actually continue his efforts in our community by transforming that into a new and higher and better use building with some restoration efforts. And so I'd really like to see that happen. That would be a game changer for us.
We have been chatting with Gwen Howard, the chair of the Buffalo Preservation Board, about a story that we know has a lot of you talking. So Gwen, we so appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate and Michael.
All right.